What's good, future physios, and welcome back to another episode of the PhysioSchool Podcast, your guide to becoming a physiotherapist. My name is Anthony Pinto da Costa, and today I'm joined with my upper echelon co-host, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Cash Mahdi. Cash, how's it going today, man?
Good, buddy. How's everything?
I've been good, man. Just having a lazy Sunday here. I've been a little bit lost after I finished Ozark. I'm not 100% sure what to watch anymore, but I don't know if you have any suggestions
Oh,
for
what's
me
that?
to fill my
There's one
time.
on Netflix I'm watching right now. It's the character's name is Anna Delvey. So it's a character. She was like conning people out of a bunch of money in like upper New York, like the upper scene in New York. I think it's called Inventing Anna. Inventing Anna. It's a bit long, but it's a good story. You can check that one out.
Yeah, the girl from Ozark, Ruth, is in that.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah. So yeah, I should watch that one. I should watch that one for sure.
Yeah, that's the trending one. That's number one on Netflix right now. That's how I know what to watch.
Yeah, man. I'll go for it next Sunday. That's a next Sunday
Nice.
project. But anyways, let's get into today's episode. So today we're taking this podcast somewhere it hasn't been before, which is right smack dab in the middle of the country, the province of
Of the
Manitoba.
Canada.
Of the Canada, exactly. Our guest today goes by the name of Sara Winzinowich and is a current physiotherapy student at the University of Manitoba. And she's been kind enough to lend us a bit of her time to talk about her experience in the program so far. So, without further ado, Sara, how's it going today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys very much for having me on today. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited too. You know, we want to shed light on every program in Canada here, so we're making a pit stop today in Manitoba for you.
Yeah, hitting up the prairies.
Exactly. So why don't we just start open here first? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, your age, where you're from, where you did your undergrad, and if you have a fun fact, maybe you can drop one on us as well.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm 24 years old and I'm from just a small town outside of Winnipeg in Manitoba. I've lived here all my life. And I did my undergrad here as well at University of Manitoba. That was from 2015 to 2020. And I did that in nutrition, actually. And a little fun fact about me is that I have a YouTube channel, and that's how Anthony and Cash found me to be here today.
100%. I just let the YouTube algorithm do its thing. I was watching videos one day. I saw a day in the life of a U of N PT student. Decided to click on it, and that's how we connected. So it's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I saw some of the videos as well, and top-notch production.
Thank you very
Some
much.
good videography there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's lots of fun. It's fun to do in my spare time for sure. It's some spare time.
Yeah, it's probably pretty hectic trying to balance physio school and run a YouTube channel. I know, Anthony, you have some experience on that, but seems like you're also doing something very similar, not focused on physio, but in general, just running a day in the life of Sara, right?
Exactly. Day in the life of me. Yeah, and lots of my content is focused around U of M. But yeah, I just try to film a day in the life when I can here and there and some fun videos when I travel.
Very cool. Now, you ultimately chose to go to the University of Manitoba. Were there other schools on your radar or other schools that you were applying to?
Yeah, so I applied to University of Manitoba, of course, and I applied to Western University as well. I thought it would be fun to kind of get out of Manitoba and try to live around Canada and see what other schools are like. Unfortunately, I wasn't accepted there, and I was accepted to the university, so it made my decision easy to go to the U of M. But it's still nice to be here. I have my family, my friends, and my support system, so it's still great, and I do love the University of Manitoba.
Yeah, and you save a little money staying home.
No doubt, I definitely do.
So you hear the name Winterpeg being thrown around. Like, how cold does it actually get out there?
This year has been exceptionally cold. We've been getting like minus 40 degrees Celsius. It's been crazy. And the amount of snow we have, like piles of snow are built up like 6, 7 feet tall. Like it's winter
Wow.
is yeah, it's definitely true this year.
Damn. Yeah, it gets pretty cold out here in Ontario, so I don't even want to think of what it's like out there. But Maybe one day I'll visit.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just wanted to ask, could you maybe just provide a brief overview of the U of M program? Maybe just outline how the semesters are organized, when the placements are, how many placements there are total, and the length of the program. Just because a lot of the programs differ slightly with all these things, and some people going into these programs kind of want to know the structure of them before they make a final decision. So if you could just shed some light on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so just to kind of give an overview, it's 2 years in total. So I'll kind of break it up for year 1 and year 2, and it's almost a full 2 years. So the first year is a total of 43 weeks that you're kind of in school or in placement. And so the first year, 31 weeks straight, is just all neuromusculoskeletal. So just basically all learning for the first, yeah, 31 weeks. And then actually starting in April is when we'll do our final exams and we'll have our first placement. So I haven't had a placement yet, but I will have one this spring and then another neuromusculoskeletal in the fall as well. And so that's the first year. It's mostly learning with 2 placements. And then the second year is about the same length. So it's 42 weeks instead of 43. And so there's 24 weeks that you're actually in class or on Zoom, like studying and learning. And then 18 weeks in total where you're in placement. And that's broken up into 3 placements of 6 weeks. So all our placements are 6 weeks long. So then in total, we have 5 placements that we do over the 2 years. And just a little bit about the second year of what I've heard is you do cardiovascular and pulmonary. You learn some about that, and then you do a placement, and then neuro, and then you do a placement on neuro. And then the last one is an elective, so you can choose whatever you're most interested to go into for the placement. So overall, that's a total of 2 years, and you do 5 placements. And then that's a total of about 1,150 hours that you're doing placements to be able to graduate.
Nice.
Perfect.
And
Mhm.
you're in province, correct? Like you're someone from Manitoba who got into U of M?
Exactly, that's correct, yeah.
And does U of M also allow people from out of province into the program? And if so, how many? If you
They
know.
do. So I don't exactly know the number. They used to have all the statistics up on their website, which is I know they're doing some changes on the website, so I couldn't find it. But we do accept people from out of province, and right now in my class, there's 2 people I know that are from out of province, and I'm not sure if that's more or less than past years. It could be less just because of COVID and it's harder to travel now, but yeah, so there's 2 right now out of 49 students we have in total.
Nice. So there's a chance. There's a chance for people.
There's definitely a chance, yes.
Yeah, I actually noticed that too about the U of M's website. Like I went on, they had like years past, like I think up to 5 years worth of stats, and now they just completely revamped it. I was like scraping their website, I couldn't find anything. So here's some insider information from somebody who's actually in the program.
Yeah, we
I
got to
know.
go through Google's cache to
Yeah,
find some of these
exactly.
pages.
I
Well,
know. I wish I would've screenshotted because every year when I was trying to get in, I would look at all the stats and I'm like, "Oh, when I get in, my stats will be on there," and they didn't put them up this year that I got in, so we'll never know.
they didn't give you your moment. They need
I
to
I know, right? But
maybe in a year's time when they're done revamping it and everything. We'll see.
I hope so, yeah, I hope I can go back and look at that.
So another thing that I've seen on U of M's program website is their prerequisites, and honestly, I think it's like the longest list of prerequisites of any school, and some of them are very very specific, right? So
Yeah.
can you maybe speak on some of these prerequisites as well as what courses you took during undergrad to fulfill these requirements, and then also can you kind of speak to how taking these courses have prepared you for the program because they want you to take these prereqs for that reason. They want to make sure that you have some knowledge, some base knowledge in these subjects like aging and dealing with pediatrics. So maybe you can speak on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll kind of start off with the first 2, like anatomy and physiology. So those ones, I think for me, they made the most sense for going into physiotherapy. I just knew like you needed to have a good knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and how the body works and why you move, why you do. So that one is actually what kind of got me to go into physiotherapy. I really loved anatomy. So I was really excited that physio would be very anatomy heavy, which it really is. I know there's so much more to it now, but of course, anatomy is a big part of it. So anatomy and physiology, I would say, yeah, we use it every day in school, and I'm sure you guys use it every day in your profession when you're working as well. So that one that one made the most sense for me, and maybe one that I was confused about at first was stats, like, why is statistics a requirement for going into physiotherapy? But we actually have to take a course, it's, like a research methods course, so just teaching us how to, look up research papers and how to find or how to know if it's credible or not, so we do need to know have a little bit of a statistics knowledge to be able to understand research because it's really a big foundation of physio as well and what techniques to use. So yeah, and at U of M, I guess I took Stats 1000 for that one to fulfill that. And for the anatomy and physiology, I took first year anatomy and physiology as well. Some other ones that there are, so there's literary English. So this one was difficult for me. I ended up taking this one 3 times before I could make sure my grade was very competitive, and they want 6 credit hours of it. So that's like a full year of literary English, like Shakespeare, that kind of stuff. I'm not too strong in that. So it took me a while to get a competitive grade. I took it in my first year, and then I ended up just withdrawing it, and then I took it a couple years later, and I did a lot better, but it still wasn't competitive enough to get in. So finally, during 2020, I applied to Athabasca University actually, and ended up taking 2 3 credit hour courses of literary English, and I got a tutor too, just to make sure I could get the high grade that I needed to get into physio, and eventually it got me in. So thankfully, like third time was the charm for that one. Um, so I guess in physio, I guess we have to do a lot of writing. I guess we do a bit of writing in physio with English. I don't know about the literary English part, the whole learning about Shakespeare. We don't really do that in physio in school, but it's definitely good to have a knowledge of how to read and write. So we use that really every day in school for sure when we're communicating as well. The next one's adult and child psychology and just overall psychology. So this one I actually ended up taking a minor in psychology in my undergrad because I had to take these 3 for physio, so I thought I might as well take a few more so I can get a minor. And I think that psychology and just having the knowledge of psychology is very beneficial in physiotherapy to be able to understand yourself better and as well as patients and as like your colleagues and classmates. So that one I thought was really good to have, and also just having my minor in it, I have more knowledge about psychology and sort of how, yeah, like child psychology works, how the development works, and how the aging process happens. And I think it was definitely beneficial for me, and it has been beneficial in school, so it helps me to understand different populations, better, I guess. Physio, they definitely have classes to help us understand that more at U of M, but it gave me a good basis for sure, just to understand people in general. Let's see, there was another requirement is biology, and this was just a basic first year biology that they require and that I took, in my undergrad as well. So this was almost just kind of a high school biology that they kinda require, so just general biology, how the body works, some, enzymes, chemicals, all those, like, processes that happen in the body. So we do talk about that a little bit in physio, but I guess it's just good to have a basis of biology in general, for going into school and going into I guess, medical profession as well. It's good to have that background knowledge. And so basically, all of these classes, the stats, anatomy and physiology, English, and a couple of the psychologies and biology, they're actually all first year classes. So they're pretty easy to actually get the requirements at U of M because they're classes that most people actually take when they go into university. So most people actually end up taking these for no matter what program they're going in, so it's actually kinda nice to have these. It definitely is a long list. It's quite a few courses, and it can take about a year to get all of this done. But yeah, like they're actually most professions and I guess specialties at U of M do require these classes, so most people end up taking them. And another thing to look out for if you are applying to U of M physiotherapy, anatomy and physiology, they have expiry dates for when you take the course. So anatomy is only good for 5 years. So that is something that I didn't look into enough, and I didn't read the fine print on that. So when I was applying, I actually had to retake anatomy because it was up. My 5 years was expired for that class. So that is another class that I actually had to take at Athabasca to fulfill that requirement.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Save some
Yeah,
people some money.
exactly. I wish I would have known that for sure, but that's okay. I ended up making it.
Now you have a bit of a non-traditional, I guess, degree going into physiotherapy. And
Mm.
I did watch one of your videos where you said you knew for a while, like it's been a while that you knew you wanted to be a physiotherapist. So why did you continue going on with nutrition as your degree? And has that actually helped you going into physio school, or has it hurt you? So I just maybe want you to give some comments, give your thoughts about someone who's a nutrition undergrad going into physiotherapy school.
For sure. Yes, I know most people do kinesiology degrees when they're going into physio, and from a very young age, I really had a strong interest in exercise and sports as well as the nutrition aspect as well. So, I wanted to find something in my career that I could do that kind of encompassed both of those things. And when I found out that for physiotherapy at U of M, you can do any degree. So you can even go in with like a music and arts, any kind of degree. I thought that would be a really good opportunity for me to have that background knowledge of nutrition and then also be able to go into physiotherapy and then have that anatomy and kind of sport knowledge as well that I had always liked when I was younger. So, as well as doing nutrition for me, it was sort of a way to have a backup plan in case I could never get into physio. So I could have always gone into nutrition and become a dietitian, and that was, a backup plan if I really couldn't get into physio. Physio has always been my dream, like you said, for a long time, it was my goal, but I thought it would be very interesting to have that knowledge as well, because really, when we're talking about health, there's so many things that go into it, I know, and exercise, but I think that nutrition is definitely a very big part of that, and I think because of my background and my degree, I definitely wanna emphasize both of those. The nutrition part, what you put into your body, and then also what you're doing with your body, the exercise and moving your body as well. So you were asking, like, did this help or hurt me when going into the program? At first, I was very nervous because about 50% of my class did do kinesiology and had that really strong anatomy background and knew all about biomechanics, which was totally new to me when I went into school. So at first, I was very nervous and I thought I was going to be at a very big disadvantage. But thankfully, they really go at a good pace to let everybody learn the anatomy. We do lots of gross anatomy labs, and they set it up in a way that everybody's gonna succeed no matter which program they're from, which is really great because I was very nervous about that at first. I was like, "Oh, maybe I should have just done kinesiology," but, I guess for a couple weeks, there were things that I didn't know at the beginning of school where other people did, but it was only about a couple weeks before everybody was kind of at the same, like, knowledge level, so really I wasn't at too much of a disadvantage. I thought I would be, but they really get everybody up to the same level very quickly, which is really nice.
That's awesome. Now,
Mhm.
did you have any PT related experience that helped you get into physio school? And also, if you have any non-related, non-PT related experience that you want to speak about before you entered physio school that you think helped you get in, or you think will help you in the future as a PT?
Right. So, yeah, so interesting thing for U of M physiotherapy is they only go off of your grades and your interview. So 2 things, and you actually don't even need to show them your resume or volunteer experience, which is very interesting to me, I thought. In my experience, I did work at a physiotherapy clinic, just because I wanted to make sure that going into physiotherapy was right for me. I wanted to see I've been to a physiotherapist, but I also wanted to see what kinda happened in the back end of things and not just when you're being treated as a patient. So even though I was just working as a receptionist there, I was able to still talk with the physio often and ask them what they were doing and kind of understand what a career or what a job would look like as a physiotherapist. So I think that just helped me understand the profession more, being able to actually work in a clinic and immerse myself in a little bit of it. So I thought that was definitely helpful for me, just to also solidify my decision to become a physio. I thought that was a good idea. And I guess related to that was kind of the only thing I did related to physio experience, besides going to see a physio one time when I hurt my knee. But I guess non-related physio experience, when I kind of mentioned before that I applied to Western physiotherapy and I was hoping to go there. So they like for you to have experience working with people with disabilities. So what I did there is I volunteered in an old folks home and I played bingo with people who had dementia. And I mean, really, I kind of did it at first for the application to Western, but it was such a good experience and it was really fun. I went every Thursday night and just hung out with them and they would tell me stories and we played bingo. So that was a really great experience, and once again, it was just like I got to work with a different population that I hadn't worked with before, even though it was just a volunteer playing bingo experience, but it was really great. And I guess another thing that I did that maybe could be physio related or not really, but I used to coach ringette for a couple of years with my dad. So I've played ringette all my life growing up, and I still do right now. And yeah, so I just really enjoyed being involved with the team, and we came up with practice plans, and I was like a mentor to all these girls that I was coaching. So that was also a very exciting and fun thing to do, being a coach. I think that definitely helped me going into physio as well because working in a team environment is so prominent in school, and I know in the career it will be as well. And in school as well, we do a lot of peer teaching and learning from each other. And I think that being a coach, I was teaching drills and teaching the girls to do different things in Ring It, but I also had to learn to receive feedback from them and incorporate their ideas when we were doing coaching and at Ring It as well. So those are some things that I did before going into physio school. None of these are definitely required at U of M, but I think that I definitely would suggest having some experience with a physiotherapist before you go into it, just to make sure that it is what you really want to do and what you want to go into for schooling.
100% for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
agreed with that, and that's what we preach all the time, 100%. And I feel like, maybe you don't even realize it now, but once you start going on your placements, I feel like all these experiences that you had in the past, all those ones that you just mentioned, they're gonna
Mhm.
help you in ways that you didn't even expect them to. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
it's important also to get a few different looks from different physiotherapists as well, because one bad experience could ruin your desire to want to enter that profession when in reality that would have been a great fit for you, right? So I definitely
Mhm.
suggest trying out different clinics, different settings to see if it's what you want to do, like you said, just to make sure if it's really what you want to do before you commit 2
Yeah.
years and tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly, yeah, I definitely agree.
Without question, yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming these, correct me if I'm wrong too, I'm assuming these experiences probably helped you when you ended up doing the interview with Manitoba. Maybe you drew on some of them. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the MMI, right? It's that big scary thing that a lot of people talk about, right? So can you just tell us about your experience, how it was when you did it? Just last year, and if you have any future tips for applicants who are going to be applying to U of M either this year and for years to come.
Mhm, definitely. So I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I actually applied to U of M twice. So the first time I applied, I didn't get in, but I did have an MMI both times. So that's what kind of made me go back to school and go to Athabasca and get my grades up again. So I have the experience of doing the MMI in person, which was in 2020, and then also on Zoom in 2021, the year I got in. So yeah, I definitely have some experiences and they were definitely very different. So I'll kind of talk about the in-person one first. So doing that one, I was very nervous, like starting to prepare for the MMI. It was something I'd never done like that before. I've had interviews for jobs, but nothing that was as long for sure. The MMI was about an hour and a half and as intense, and also nothing that depended on my future so much. So it was a lot of pressure on me for sure. So for the first one, I think I prepared with one of my friends for about 3 months. We practiced for it. And yeah, so then when we did it in person, it was actually the day before everything shut down because when the pandemic started. So it was definitely a memorable day. It was hectic because you had to run around to all the stations and they'd be like, "Okay, now you're in this room," and then you have to sprint, and then, "Okay, now you're in this room." So you're sprinting around, and when I was practicing, I was always taught, make sure you shake the person's hand, like when you go into the interview room. And because the pandemic happened so quickly, that morning they were like, "Don't shake the interviewer's hand." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like all I've practiced for the last 3 months is like you walk in and shake the interviewer's hand." So that was it would they switched that up on us really fast. And then sanitizing. So that was the first time they were like, "Okay, when you get to the room, sanitize. When you leave the room, sanitize, and then run to your next station." So it was definitely hectic just because of everything that was going on in the world and just running around and remembering, "Okay, I need to sanitize and I can't shake their hand." And it kind of threw me off. Like everything I'd practiced it was different. It was still a good experience to have for sure. Talking to the interviewers and showing the skills that I'd practiced for the last 3 months and all the knowledge and everything I had learned while practicing. Unfortunately, I didn't get in that year, but I still think it was a good experience that I had that. And then the next year that I applied, I got an interview as well, and this one was on Zoom. So this one I think I liked a little bit better actually. It was more relaxed, and I didn't have to run from station to station. I could just sit on my computer in my house and then just talk to the interviewers, answer the questions, and just be myself. So I guess I would say both experiences were great. I think I liked the second one better, the MMI on Zoom. I thought it was a little bit more relaxed. But either way, it was a good experience to have in person and online because I'm sure we'll go back in person soon in the future. And yeah, so I think you said, yeah, any tips for people who are applying as well? So for some things that I did was I started preparing very early. That's for myself. I know some people don't need to start as early because they're more comfortable speaking for a long period of time and in interview situations. I'd never spoken that long before in an interview ever. So I started preparing very, very early. And luckily, I had a partner to prepare with. We were both going to the program. And we basically would meet up once a week for 3 or 4 hours, and we would go back and forth, and we would quiz each other, or not quiz each other, I guess interview each other. So we would write out questions, or we would find practice questions online, and we would set it up like the real thing. So we would say, "Okay, here you go. You get your time to read it, and now you have to talk about it for this long." So it was really good. We forced each other to really practice hard and to learn and to overcome our fear and all the nerves we had with speaking for this long, and working through ethical questions because that was something I hadn't done as well, because MMI does ask you mostly ethical questions. So yeah, I would say for sure, first tip is to practice, practice, practice as much as you can, just to get very familiar with it because it is a different interview style than most interviews usually are. And another thing is, I would say when you are in the MMI and you're in the interview, is just to be yourself. I think the first time when I did the interview in person, I answered the questions as to what I thought the interviewers would maybe like to hear more so. And the second time I was more myself and I was true to what I would actually do in the situation and what I actually thought. So I think that's also very important to try to be yourself and have fun with it. I know that's hard because it is a stressful situation to have fun with it, but yeah, just as much as you can, just to try to have fun and be yourself. And another thing was that I did to prepare for the MMIs was I tried to be as up to date with current events as I could. So current events regarding just everything going on in the world and as well with the healthcare system. I got familiar with ethics, so I read a book called Doing Right on ethics, and that helped me understand ethics more and making ethical based decisions. And as well as I got familiar with Indigenous health and I learned more about that in Manitoba and in Canada in general. So I did this I listened to a lot of podcasts actually on current events. I read books, I read the news, and I just tried to really immerse myself in the ethics, in the news, in the current events, and Indigenous health just to try to be as ready as possible for the MMI. So that's what I did for that. Yeah, so I practiced, I tried to be myself, and I just tried to gain as much knowledge as I could on all the topics I could possibly be asked on.
Definitely great tips there. Now,
Sounded very ready for this interview.
so this
Yeah,
was your second time now applying to U of M.
yeah.
What do you think were some of the differences that helped you get in the second time around that you didn't necessarily do the first time around? You mentioned some things already where you were being yourself in the interview. Were there other things in your application or your grades or even in the MMI that you think benefited you by doing something different?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I mentioned, I just tried to answer more truthfully to myself and just be more honest in what I would actually do as a person. So that was a big thing in the difference. So, and then the other thing was my grades. So over 2020 is when that's the year I didn't get in. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I had to problem solve to figure out what could I do now to get into physio? What can I change about my application? So the two biggest things were improving my grades and improving my interview. So for improving my grades, over 2020, so that's when I went to Athabasca and I took anatomy and physiology and I took English. So for my anatomy physiology, the reason is because my anatomy was expiring because now it was over 5 years. So I had to retake that. And then I also took English. So I talked about before how the second time I took English, I did raise my grade, but it wasn't quite enough, I thought, because I didn't get in the first time. So at Athabasca, I took it for the third time, that literary English, and I got a tutor as well. So just like a local tutor I got in from Winnipeg. And so I made sure I worked as hard as I could in this English class and I used the tutor. And luckily it really paid off. So I put as much hard work as I could because it was extremely disappointing not getting in the first time after I did already work very hard and I had to really come up with what I could do differently because the first time I did put really as much effort as I thought I could have. But yeah, for the second time, I did change some things. So that's what I did for the grades aspect because the application does revolve around 60% of your grade and then 40% of your interview. So I focused on getting my grades up. And the next thing I did was I actually joined Toastmasters. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's a public speaking group you can join. So this was recommended to me because I wanted to improve my interviewing skills and I was like, how am I going to do that? I'd already done all these things that I'd practiced so much and I had like learned all the knowledge I thought I could. I still did that again, but I thought maybe I could improve my public speaking. So I ended up joining a Toastmasters group in Winnipeg. And I think it really benefited me in improving my speaking because most of my life, I had been very shy, and I also didn't really have much experience with public speaking. I think I maybe did one presentation in my undergrad degree, and really, I avoided it as much as possible. I wasn't really the one to speak in class or speak in school if I wasn't called on. I was usually silent most of the time. So I thought I would join Toastmasters, and I think it definitely helped my speaking for the interview. But I know it also helped my speaking, I think, just generally in life. And I know it will as a physio, speaking to patients and my classmates, and even now in this podcast. I don't think I ever would have been doing this before in the future. So I think that definitely helped me. Toastmasters is a really great place just to go and speak, and everybody's very encouraging and they want you to get better and to do better with your speaking. So it's a safe space to receive feedback, and it was really great. They actually put on a mock MMI for me in one of the meetings, and they all came up with questions for me, and we did a mock MMI, and then at the end they all gave me really, really valuable feedback as well. And I tried to implement that as much as possible when I actually went into the MMI as well. So I think Toastmasters was a really great thing for me, and I'm actually still in it today. I've almost been in Toastmasters for a year now. And I really think it should be something that almost should be a part of university curriculum, even because there's so many aspects of life and in careers in the future where you have to speak and be comfortable with it. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't and have fears of speaking, which I definitely did used to have fears of speaking. And I definitely feel a little bit more confident with it now that I've been in this public speaking group.
That's amazing. I love all that. And I
Thank you.
like that, you maybe you didn't get in that first time, but you did everything possible to ensure that the next crack of the bat you were going to actually hit a home run, and you
Mhm.
definitely did, which is great.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
because you brought up your grades there, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit to
Yeah.
when we were talking about the prerequisite courses. So, from what I remember, Manitoba really looks at those the grades of those prerequisite courses. So, a lot of other schools. Some of them will have a minimum grade. Others will have just that you have to take it, and they don't have a minimum grade. But I know that Manitoba does, I think, the GPA PC, the GPA of the prerequisite courses.
Yeah.
So because a lot of those courses you mentioned are courses that undergrads typically are going to take a little bit earlier. You know how undergrad goes. Maybe you don't do as well in those first couple years, but you do a little bit better later.
Mhm.
Is there any considerations that you'd like to speak on when taking those courses? And is there like a minimum grade that they're looking for with those courses?
Yeah, so for those ones, I believe it's a B plus that they're looking for in those courses, and that's very minimum. So from when they used to have all those statistics posted on the website, if you did have a B plus in those courses, I don't know if you'd be considered for an interview to get into the program. So really, I think what they're looking for is more of an A in those courses or above, which is what you can see is usually getting accepted into the program. So even though it does mention a B or a B plus, it definitely needs to be a lot higher to be actually competitive. And so yeah, I would just keep that in mind for sure. And it is too bad that there is that expiry date on that anatomy. And then I think physiology, you have 10 years. So it's difficult because if you can do your degree in 4 years and then get in right after, then it will work for you. But I would just say to keep that in, maybe something you'll have to redo if you do take it in the first year. Planning to go into physio, maybe try to take those courses in the second year if you can, just to give yourself some more time because it is that 5-year expiry period for the anatomy and then 10 years for physiology. So I guess it's nice if you do have your career planned out that you want to go into physio, but a lot of the time it does take a couple of years to figure out what you want to do. So you may just end up having to redo it if everything doesn't go according to plan. But hopefully it does and you won't have to redo it. But there is always that piece where you may have to.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
All right. Now, I got a question for you.
Mhm.
What is it like living in Winterpeg?
Yeah, for sure. So Winnipeg, is very, very cold for sure, especially in the winter is extremely cold. Like I was saying before, it's about minus 40 degrees Celsius, and it has been most of this winter. And we've had many blizzards this year, and I do live outside of Winnipeg, and the highways get closed very, very often. So I have been stuck in my house quite a bit this winter, which isn't very common, but Winterpeg is definitely Winterpeg this year. Even with all the snow and the cold, if you do dress for it, it can still be fun because a lot of people in Winnipeg love to do outdoor activities. I'm sure it's the same maybe in Ontario as well, but snowmobiling is very common here. People love to skate on the river or on the outdoor arenas, as well as snowshoeing, cross country skiing, and then people here also love to snowboard and ski as well. We have a little hill, but if we can, it's a lot more fun to go to Banff or to BC or something like that. But there still is some fun stuff to do in the winter. I also mentioned before I'm very involved in ringette, and I have been most of my life, which for those of you who don't know, it is like hockey, but it's the end of the stick is cut off, so it's a straight stick and a ring, and you skate around on the ice. So I'm very involved in that. So I play that usually all winter long, and I still do play that. I've played it since I was 10 or 11. So that's one of my favorite parts of winter for sure. And in summer, actually, we have very nice summers. It's very hot, and a lot of people usually end up going to the lakes here and spend as much time as they can at the lake because it's so beautiful, and we really get very warm summers. So we get really cold winters, but we do get really warm summers too. So we get the extremes here, basically.
Yeah, I've been to Winnipeg once, and I was in Toronto, and it was nice and sunny, and this was October. Flew down to Winnipeg, and there was a blizzard. So go figure. I'm like, this is
In
not
October
nice.
too.
It's
No,
brutal.
that's not good.
Cash, we'll have to take a trip in the summer at some
Yeah,
point.
I'll have to get a second impression of Winnipeg.
Yeah. In the summer, it'll be
Absolutely.
nice.
100%. So watching one of your videos, I saw that you were talking about how there was a big adjustment for you going from undergrad into physio school. You talked about how they're not really the same, right? And I think Cash and I would definitely both agree with that. Could you maybe just talk about that adjustment for you, how that first semester was? Because I think any physio student will say that first semester is super heavy. So maybe speak on that, and then just speak on just your general experience in the program so far.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the adjustment was definitely big. I thought undergrad was difficult at first, but going to this master's program was definitely a whole new ball game for sure. Yeah, it was different because we start in August. We start when it's still warm and it's sunny out, so it was definitely hard to be sitting, at my desk and on Zoom all day long. But, yeah, so it's definitely heavy, but I think that as long as you're prepared that it's going to be hard, you can definitely manage it. You never really know how hard it's gonna be until you're in it, but I tried to prepare as best I could, but I quit my job actually going into physio so I would have more time to study, and then when I did have free time, I could just relax and or hang out with friends or do something I wanted to do. So I tried to do that, and then they always recommend in school as well when we go in, they say, "Let your friends and family know, like, your expectations and what they should expect from you as well." Because in this program, a lot of the time, I'm in class from 8 till 5, and then I usually have to do some studying all night long, and I might be at school all night long as well, doing some hands-on or more practical studying. So it's definitely hard to be present, at home with my family or if they wanna have a family dinner or something, it's definitely hard to do that. So as long as, like, they know how busy it's going to be, it definitely helps you out because 'cause you're not feeling as guilty when you're missing out on things or when you're, at school late and having late night studying. So those were some things I tried to do. I just tried to let my family know kinda what to expect and my friends as well, because there was a lot of times I had to make sacrifices and miss seeing my friends or miss going to a family event, but I know in the end it'll be worth it after these 2 years for sure. But another thing I think is important is to no matter how busy you are, how busy I am, I always try to prioritize myself if I can. So that's why I was talking about I still play ringette. So that's like an hour or 2 a week, and then I have to factor in some driving time. And sometimes it might seem like I don't have time for that, but just like being active whatsoever, or when I go in with my ringette team, I can talk and laugh with them, and it's a nice break from studying for sure. Even sometimes when I feel like I don't have time to do it, I try to make sure I do go because it just helps to break up the studying and helps me feel a little bit more human sometimes to go out and visit with people. So I think that's very important just to find something that you really love to do and use it as an escape from school. And that's why I made sure that I definitely kept playing ringette, and I also try to go to the gym when I can when I'm at school. I think it's definitely very beneficial for your mental health, and also just to see your friends or anything that really can help you relax and take a break from it. I would definitely recommend doing, because it is so heavy and it is such a big adjustment. But it took me about a month, I would say, to get adjusted to school. And at first it's a little bit odd, and you're trying to figure out like what classes you have and what they expect and how to take your notes and different things like that. But it does take a couple of weeks, but you'll definitely get the hang of it. You just have to try different things. You try doing this, and does it work for you or does it not? And just definitely a big thing is to make time for yourself and to take breaks for sure. But overall, as well, just kind of talking a little bit more about my experience in school besides the adjustment, making friends with my classmates has really been a great part of it. And they really are your support system for getting through it, because nobody else understands what you're going through as much as they do for sure. And at U of M, you get put into, so there's 49 of us, usually 50, but we all get placed into groups of 5, and those are kinda like your little support system, like bubble. So you do your labs with them, you do your assessments with them, you do your projects with them, and they become basically your best friends in school, and they really are, because they understand what you're going through, and you can really lean on them for support. So it's really been great having that, and I really love the fact that U of M does that, because it also forces you to get to know people, especially with the pandemic and doing Zoom at home. Sometimes that's hard, but luckily we do get to go into school, and having this little group that I'm very close with has definitely helped made the change a lot easier. And then also when things are difficult in school, I can always lean on them and they can lean on me. So that aspect I've really liked. And along with my little group of 5 that I have, I'm also everybody in school is very close, all 49 of us. And when the U of M did go on strike in the fall, my program also was on strike for a little bit. A couple of us all went to Banff together, actually. We took a couple of days and we all drove together to Banff. And that was very exciting, because we'd only been in school together for a couple months, but we were already so close. We went on a little trip together. So it's definitely great. It's like a little community or a little family, and we always try to hang out if we can, like once a week or once every second week, just to catch up with each other and do something fun that's not school related. So like go bowling or go out for dinner or something like that. So it is definitely, it's nice because it's, you get very close with everyone, and you're definitely not alone at all. There's definitely somebody for you to talk to if you need to. Same goes with all the professors as well at U of M. They are really great, and they really care about you and want to get to know you, which is something that was different from undergrad, because the classes were so huge. It was hard for them to even learn your name, the professors in undergrad. So it's nice in the program because they really care about you and they get to know your life, but you also get to know a lot about your professors as well too. And you're on a first name basis with them. And really, you can go to them for help whenever you need and really with anything. So that's also a really nice part of it too. So really, the people have been great in the program and the program as well. It's definitely challenging, but everything they do, I know they do so that they help us when we go into our first placement, and then when we go into the workforce as well eventually. So it's definitely a full course load, but everything they do is really great. They help us learn to teach each other and learn how to communicate and learn all the skills that we need to know. So overall, it's been a good experience.
It's good to hear that there's still some social activities going on in physio school, because I can speak to
Yeah.
it, and I think Anthony, you'll probably concur that physio school is probably one of the funnest times of my life, just because you make so many friends and you're going to the same classes with everyone in the class and you get really close together. And I'm happy with the whole pandemic and Zoom University going on that there's still some time being made to, hang out, get to know each other. You guys went on a trip, and those are always fun. That's always
Mhm.
a great part of physio school.
Definitely, yeah. I really value that part of it for sure.
Now, I know you haven't gone on a placement yet, but there's a
Mhm.
big question here. What type of physio do you want to become? Is there an area of practice that you want to get into?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm kind of leaning right now more towards like sport physio. So maybe working with athletes if I can, or more sports related injuries. That's kind of the dream that I have right now. But my mind is still open to other options, because really I haven't learned a lot yet and I haven't even been into placement. I've definitely always wanted to try out working in a hospital as well. So I think that that could be something. I know that that doesn't really go with this whole sports side of it, but I definitely want to experience that and see what working in a hospital would be like. So I could see myself in the hospital and private practice. But yeah, the really sport physio is kind of what I'm leaning towards, just also with my background with sports. And I've always been involved with teams. And like I said, I was coaching before. So I think that that would be very exciting to be involved with. That is kind of my dream right now. But who knows, when I go on placement, maybe I'll be swayed one way very strongly and I'll end up doing something completely different. I mean, who knows?
And that happens 100%. It happened to me.
Both of us.
Both Cash and I. We've pretty much like been everywhere, right? So I
Mhm.
was thought I was just going to be 100% private practice. I did my acute care placement. I loved it, and now I do a little bit of both. And Cash, I don't know if you
Okay.
wanted to let her know about your experience too.
Yeah, so I thought I was gonna just do private practice and just stick to that, and I had no interest in hospital whatsoever. But I actually didn't do a placement in the hospital. I did a placement in the hospital in Nepal. I did an international one where I did a
Oh,
children's
cool.
hospital, but I didn't have the traditional hospital placement most people had. So I had zero experience in it. But then I started doing travel PT in the US. So I got licensed in the US to go travel around and go to different places. And my best experience was actually in the hospital. I went to a rural hospital where I got to do a little everything, and I actually preferred that over private practice. And now I tell everyone to keep their minds open. Private practice is cool, but try out some other settings as well. You might love it a little bit more. And that's what happened to me. Like I've done different things like long-term care. I've done private practice, obviously. That was the main area I started in. But I really fell in love with the hospital side of things afterwards.
Wow, that is so awesome. There's so many different places we could work as physios.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't even have to decide like even once you're done school, right? Like say you do want
Mhm.
to go private practice, and I say this for the viewers as well, like you can do that for a couple of years and then reinvent yourself and do something else right after, right? That's the beauty of the profession. It's so versatile and you can just pick up and do whatever you want whenever you want. So
Yeah, and
it's
that's a
good.
great thing. Like Anthony right now is working in both settings simultaneously. Whereas like when I was doing travel PT, when I got a little bored with something, I switched it up and went to a different setting. So you have the variety to keep it a little bit fresh and keep if you start getting bored with one setting, you can switch it up and go somewhere else. And that's something that's really great about this profession. Unlike in medicine where you're stuck in a specialty, you can move
Mm,
around here. So there is a bit of variety there.
very true. I definitely like that idea. You can have variety and switch it up whenever you want for sure.
Yeah, we're excited for you. The next about year and a half for you is going to be pretty good experience. Just going through all the different placements. That's where the real beauty of the program starts to come in. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
great.
exciting.
So yeah, we talked about a lot here today. Just wanted to wrap up here just with one last question, I guess,
Mm,
is there any other pieces of advice or something else that we didn't touch on today that maybe you wanted to let the listeners know about? Because there's going to be some people listening to this for sure, and a lot of people who are going to be looking up to you and definitely listening to the words you're saying. So, anything on your mind that you wanted to get off?
I would say, I guess from my experience, not getting in the first time I applied to physio, and it was extremely devastating. I guess if anybody else has that experience or you're unsure if you can get into physio and if you can do it, I say you definitely can. If you work hard and if you set your mind to it for sure, and it will definitely happen for you. So I would definitely say, even if you have some failures, you can definitely get in, pick yourself up again, and try again for sure. Like me, I kept trying and I didn't give up and I got in. So make sure you do that, and you'll be able to have your dream career, whatever it is, if it's physio or if it's not.
Great
Yeah.
advice. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for coming on to the show. I know this will be very beneficial for anyone who wants to get into physio school, especially for those who are planning to apply to U of M and do an MMI. I think you gave a lot of great insight there. Do you want to maybe share where people can reach out to you, your YouTube channel, Instagram, or anywhere else that people can get in contact with you?
For sure, yeah. So yeah, my YouTube channel is called Hey It's SAR, and you can definitely comment on any of my videos. I'll respond there. You can reach me on Instagram. You can send me a message. You can see my name right here on the screen. It's Sara Winzinowich. It's all one word. So you can send me a message there, and I'll definitely get back to you. Feel free to ask me anything that you have questions about.
And don't forget to like and subscribe and share all that.
Hit the subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe
Smash
button.
that subscribe button. Absolutely.
Turn on the notifications.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. Really, really appreciate your time on a Sunday night here. Hope you have a good rest of your week. But just to wrap up the podcast here, guys, if you have any questions or if you want to hear more episodes like this, consider subscribing, leave a review, reach out to us. We got all of our social media platforms in the description below, and we're happy to chat. All right, guys, we will see you at the next episode.
Mhm.